All right, we're live.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining our stream. We'll give everyone just a couple minutes. I know I'm running a couple minutes late as well. But we are going to talk about the EB-1A Strong program. If you're interested in joining that, um, we initiated EB-1A Strong I think in October of last year, and it's been through several different iterations. We just finished up with our first cohort, which is a 6-week cohort. And it went really smoothly, really well. So we're going to copy that format and do another cohort coming up. We decided to do the 6-week program so that everyone would have a chance to work with a defined group of people. Not everyone's in the same field or industry, but everyone is roughly the same level as far as progress to be made on the EB1. What we're doing is we are screening people and picking people who already have, some kind of reasonable claim in their background for EB-1A, but who need to build a well-rounded profile, who need to actually strengthen a few criteria before they can file. So usually this is senior level professionals, but sometimes it's more mid-career or even junior professionals, as long as they have something that is impressive or extraordinary in their profile. So everyone works together. We come up with a plan for which criteria to target. Every week we are doing specific deep dives into 1 or 2 criteria, just to make sure that everyone has those opportunities and knows exactly what to do. I will say, though, the work is all put on you. It's very, very important that you put in a lot of work over the 6-week period in order to be successful in the course. The idea is that this jumpstarts your profile building so that hopefully you will be able to file the EB-1A within 6 months to a year after completing the course. We have some people that have really accelerated and have moved ahead of that, so they're ready to file 3 months in. We have other people who are currently making a plan to file within or to file after 1 year of profile building. So everyone can customize their pace, customize their plan, but this is supposed to jumpstart it and make it so that you can actually accomplish that. I probably have a lot more to say about EB-1A Strong. If you have questions, please feel free to start putting them in the chat here. I'm happy to answer. And then Jason, is there anything that you want to talk about or anything that you want me to comment on?
So we can talk about. So you have filed a couple of these, for a couple of these people already. Can you talk more about how they built up their profiles in a couple of months?
Yeah, so we just filed our first couple from people who had started the program in October. And a lot of them got really into it. So a lot of people in our first lineup, so October, November, December, they had started off, I think, being a little bit more cautious or unsure of what to do. They did a few sessions with us, and we really recommended outreach for all of them. And we're going to be recommending outreach to you as well if you join the EB-1A Strong program. Jason can really coach you through how to reach out to people, how to talk to people, how to get opportunities. And I can focus you in on refining those opportunities and figuring out what works for your EB-1A profile. The people that have been really successful have targeted 2 to 3 criteria each and have generated a lot of opportunities within those. But most importantly, they've cultivated an understanding of what is important in their field, what objectively is admired in their field, and been able to select opportunities based on that metric. It's something that we can help you develop. So once you have refined your ability to outreach to a bunch of different people, you will then be able to choose the ones that will have the best payoff for the EB-1A. We've had people who have done a lot of outreach to reporters and gotten some organic media coverage that way, so no paid papers, but have been able to get interviewed, talk about their field of expertise, talk about a particular problem within their field, and they've been really successful in generating more opportunities once they got that first opportunity. So that's been really good. We've had some people write papers, and some of our cohort members have collaborated on papers as well. They're being published in objectively reputable conferences. So a couple IEEE conferences. I forget what the other organization is. It might be ACM or something like that, but a couple conferences like that. And then people like routinely do judging. I recommend judging actually for everyone because it's an easy criteria to win, and there are plentiful opportunities. So we've coached people through getting like higher level judging opportunities where they are judging other top professionals in the field. And our successful cohort members have all been good about getting those. So generally targeting judge, authorship, media, membership, and then talking about how to present original contributions, talking about how to present leading or critical role. I would say the people who did the best in the course and who have accelerated up to the point where we are actually able to file for them right now have put in a lot of work. They've contacted a lot of people. They've figured out from a slate of opportunities which are the best ones. And we've been there to guide them every step of the way.
So there are some questions. Anthony asks, will you do a free evaluation of my current situation to know if I can join the profile building group?
So I wouldn't call it an evaluation. We usually check your LinkedIn profile. And if we say no to you and you want a more in-depth kind of evaluation, I would say maybe go through Waypoint and do one of our free assessments or book a consultation with me personally and we can talk through your situation. But if we say yes to your LinkedIn profile, it means we see some potential. And we think that you will be a good fit for the whole cohort. So go ahead and submit your LinkedIn profile just through the EB-1A Strong landing page. We'll do the evaluation, and then if you get a no or if you don't hear from us, just reach out again.
In preparing the EB-1A petition, do you go with the strongest criteria first, or do you go in the sequence of the criteria? What are the first criteria that is met in the sequence is the weakest of the 3, 4, or 5 criteria which have been met?
Yeah. So awards and membership are at the top of the list for USCIS, and they're usually the weakest for tech or industry cases. So I definitely do not go in the sequence that the regulations present. I will present the strongest one up front.
What are all including as part of the judging opportunities?
So we do go into depth in this in the EB-1A Strong course, and I do also have some YouTube videos out about it. There are several different categories of judging. So there's peer review, which is the gold standard because USCIS always accepts it. There's competition judging. There is like being on an advisory board type thing. There's more informal judging like mentorship, which is so-so. There's competition and award. I think I mentioned competitions, but there's competition and award judging. And then there are some more niche things, like if you are evaluating startup proposals for some kind of like accelerator program, that can count. There's all kinds of niche things that can work. It's really, really important, though, to come up with a plan that is related to your field of expertise and not just judge something generic like the Stevie Awards. Like you can judge the Stevie Awards and it can be part of claiming the judge criterion, but make sure that you're selecting opportunities that fit your particular profile of expertise.
Would writing exam questions for a recognized certification be considered original contribution?
So I've argued that writing curriculum is an original contribution. I'm not sure about exam questions. I would have to look into that in more detail.
Do you do case review of draft self-petition?
No, I have not figured out a good way to scope that work. I mean, sometimes, so I've tried it before. Sometimes I'll get a case where I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. I have a few strategic suggestions, a few edits here and there, and I can help improve the case. But then sometimes I get cases that are like 100 pages long and a hot mess, and I just don't even know where to start. So it's too difficult to scope the work. I don't do reviews of draft petitions for that reason. I can advise on strategy, so if you ever want to talk through strategy for the case, you can book a consultation. But I definitely prefer to file the cases start to finish so that I know that we're following the strategies and approaches that I have seen work in my experience. That's really the value that I bring. I don't think that there's necessarily tons of value in having an attorney just review, because you're going to end up missing really big things.
So no other questions.
Okay.
We can talk a bit about what people have been able to do through the community and then through the first cohort as well.
Can you be a little more specific? Sorry.
Yeah, so one person was able to land 3 speaking opportunities in 6 weeks. So that's, yeah, essentially.
One of them for a top conference as well. And
Yeah.
that is key. It's not just about doing like 3 random webinars. They were able to reach out and figure out what was going on in their field or their industry. And then one of the opportunities was really, really good. The other 2 were decent. But yeah, they were able to do that because we're pushing them forward. They're collaborating with other members. They're figuring out what opportunities are available and which will be good for the EB-1A.
Yeah, and something that we also try to address throughout the cohort, throughout the course, is that you don't need like 10 to 20 opportunities for each criterion. That high quality opportunities, even if just 1 or 2 of them can be enough to meet a criterion.
Yeah. In past experience with cases that I've filed, I think every single criterion, I have filed a case where the case was really contingent on that criterion, and there was maybe 1, maybe 2 opportunities that we highlighted. So one case we claimed 3 criteria, and there was only 1 judge role, and we claimed the judge role criteria. Still won the case. Now, granted, this person was very clearly at the top of her field. Like there was really no denying that through the other criteria, but judging really only had 1, and it still went through. Same is true for membership. I have actually claimed 3 criteria where membership was a key part, and it was a truly impressive membership. So the case went through, even though membership is generally really difficult to claim. But the membership was so good that it was clearly at the top of the field. I've claimed authorship where the person had 1 paper. Now the 1 paper was very well received and very highly cited. It ended up being like a really influential, I forget exactly what was announced in this paper, but it was something to do with AI. And there were 130 citations on this single paper. And it was the only paper this person had ever written or presented at a conference. And it was still a really strong criteria. So that case went through. There's all kinds of scenarios like that. So when you're profile building, you don't need to come up with like a certain number or a certain threshold of items. And I know that that's contrary to some of the common guidance that's out there. I was talking with a client the other day who said that her attorney literally said you need 200 judging opportunities before we will file your EB-1A. And I'm like, that's so arbitrary and that's nonsense. You can do it with 1, like literally 1. You do not need 200. I have seen other attorneys set thresholds like you need 1,000 citations before we'll even consider filing your case. Again, it's not necessary. You don't need that. So, when you are looking for attorneys, a lot of them will have their own thresholds, but just keep in mind that those are thresholds for the types of cases they accept and they are comfortable filing. For you don't need to focus on meeting their benchmarks and meeting their thresholds because it inevitably means that you're just working towards that and you're not necessarily working towards extraordinary ability. You're just trying to do 200 judging opportunities or publish 12 papers and get 1,000 citations or something like that. Like, sure, it might help the attorney take your case, but in the end, it doesn't do anything for your final merits. It's just checking boxes off the list. And if you're doing that and not taking a bigger picture look, you may have a really difficult time under final merits. When USCIS asks you to demonstrate that you have risen to the top of your field. Do things that matter for your field or industry. Do things that matter in the context of your work. And do things that are genuinely and objectively good for your career. Those are the things that are going to result in a stronger EB-1A case in the long run. And they'll also help you out. So none of it will be wasted effort in the end. So all of it will be good for your career.
Do you think publication in top journals and receiving citations help crack the original contributions and published material criteria?
So you can definitely claim the authorship criterion if you have articles in top journals with citations. At that point, authorship should be granted to you. For original contributions, it is a little bit trickier because it's not enough to have a paper with citations. You have to explain what your contribution was, why it was original, and why it was important, and most importantly, impactful. You have to show that it's been of major significance to the field as a whole. That's really hard to do. Like, you can have a paper in a top journal that's cited above the impact factor. Let's say it's cited 10 times. And USCIS can still say, I mean, that's not really enough to show impact. It's not enough to show major significance to the field. Sure, it's above average significance, but is it major significance? No. So original contributions is a lot about narrative. It's a lot about demonstrating impact and influence. Letters are very important so that you have individual people high up in your industry explaining why those have been so impactful. And then, like, as many objective metrics as possible are also good. Like, citations are good. Number of conferences you presented this idea at are good. Number of customers reached, number of drugs produced, number of patients saved. Like, you want numbers as much as possible for this criterion.
I have a PhD in computer vision. I have 18 papers, 3 patents from India, and 200 citations, 30 reviewer points. I think that's just part of the other question.
So I think you're asking if this is qualified for EB-1A.
Okay.
There's some elements here which are good. So, like, this is definitely something I would evaluate, but I can't just say that this is qualified or not qualified looking at the numbers here. There's a lot more background information that is needed. So I would encourage you to get the case assessed. I'm just not sure about it right now.
What is considered anchor criterion?
So the anchor criterion is just the core of the case. It establishes why you are at the top of your field. So for most people, that's going to be their leading or critical role. Maybe they hold a position that is genuinely enviable in the field, a position that would be considered competitive that only the top % of people get. That's an anchor criterion. Or they've made some kind of really impressive original contribution of major significance. So they've done something extraordinary. In that case, that's the anchor criterion. Sometimes they're going to serve in some kind of membership role, like maybe the president of some professional association, clearly an anchor criterion. Like, that is definitive industry recognition that they're at the top of their field. Maybe they've won the defining award in the field or something like that. So the anchor criterion is generally the thing that establishes you as a top expert. It's not about numbers, although numbers do factor in. It's the core part of the narrative. It's the part where USCIS can really understand why you are impressive. For most people, it is going to be leading or critical role or original contributions, but sometimes it can be something else.
This is from the PhD question. What is my next criteria I should focus on?
Yeah, I would need to do a full assessment. It's not just about numbers or reaching a certain threshold in certain categories. Like, you may need to focus on authorship. You may need to focus on original contributions. You might want to focus on membership or media. But it's going to depend on the narrative of your case and what niche you're going for, where you're at in your career, what position you're in, that kind of thing.
What if you've been published in a prominent article like Yahoo News or Business Insider, but you approached a journalist and mentioned about your expertise, how to use that for the application?
I'm not 100% sure I'm grasping what's being asked here. Like, if you have been mentioned in a publication in Yahoo or Business Insider, can you use it for the application? Yes. Now, keep in mind, most of the major sites like Yahoo or Business Insider or MSN or Forbes or a variety of things, they have different sections and formats. So some of the articles are just pay to play. Others are written by their legit journalists. And it's sometimes hard to tell the difference, but you do want to make sure that this isn't like an article that you wrote that was then published, or that your PR agent wrote and then was published as a contributor rather than as a journalist or a reporter. And so like there's a lot of different formats to these articles. I would want to look and see how yours was published in order to determine if it can be used.
Sorry, where do I put my LinkedIn profile for assessment? I cannot see it on your website.
So the EB-1A Strong website is eb1astrong.com. And it has a form where you can fill out and say you're interested, and you just drop your LinkedIn profile there. And then remember, I do work at Waypoint, so I run the Waypoint firm, but it is separate from EB-1A Strong. EB-1A Strong is more about the career consulting. So we talk about things in context of EB-1A, but we do not provide individual legal advice on your immigration situation or your status or anything like that. I can do that through Waypoint, but for EB-1A Strong, we're focused on your career and how to build it into a profile where you can claim that you are extraordinary in your career.
Have you had experience with people submitting only 3 criteria and strengthening their final merit and getting approved?
I think the strengthening their final merit here is it's not realistic. Like final merits is not something that you strengthen by adding activities. Like I know some attorneys will submit a final merits argument where they'll put a bunch of speaking engagements, other awards, media coverage, like all the things that don't fit in the criteria. But those are just weaker aspects of the case. Like they're not the thing that makes you extraordinary. So we don't do profile building towards final merits. Like when we do the profile building, we keep final merits in mind, and it helps you narrow down and select the best opportunities. But we don't do separate profile building for final merits. If you're submitting only 3 criteria, at least one of those criteria had better definitively show that you are at the top of your field. So it needs to be a really strong anchor criteria. So like I'll give 2 case examples. The one I was talking about where we only submitted 3 criteria and one of them was judge role with 1 judging opportunity. The person was the leader at the brand defining major company in her field and could not possibly rise higher. That's super strong final merits. You can't really get better than that for final merits. For a researcher, we claimed original contributions, authorship, and judge. Original contributions, super strong because they had come up with like I'm not even going to be able to describe it correctly, but like the defining research breakthrough that had led to the development of this very particular drug for this very particular treatment of disease. And that one paper had been cited hundreds of times. It was just clearly a career-defining achievement. So we claim final merits because they had that super strong anchor criteria. And they didn't even really need to build the profile. Like we didn't tell them to do more judge roles, even though they had less than 100 judge roles. The final merits was just really, really strong for that case. So if you are in the midst of profile building and you don't have an anchor criteria and you don't really have the final merits of the case yet, sometimes you will need some career progression and some time. Like it is not possible for everyone to build a profile within 6 months to a year. That's why we do the screening for the EB-1A Strong program. Some people need 5 years. Some people need 10 years before they're qualified for EB-1A. And they need 5 or 10 years while doing actual work towards that goal. I've had a couple consultations over the past few weeks where I think some people have been very disappointed with the outcome. Because they do meet 3 criteria, but they're just so junior in their field that there's no final merits argument. Like there's nothing that we can make. And so I feel bad giving that advice, but you need to show that you're extraordinary in your field. You need to show that you've risen to the top. You can't just meet the criteria. And building towards final merits does take time sometimes.
What is the criteria for O1A? Do O1A visa holder having finance background has a brighter chance to get green card through EB-1A?
So the O1 criteria are similar to the EB1. There are slight differences in the language that is used. For example, in EB-1A, you have to show that you've performed a leading or critical role. In O1A, it's called a critical or essential role. They're almost the same thing, realistically, but O1 generally has a lower standard. And also the final merit standard for O1 is much lower than for EB-1A. I think having an O1A does help in your journey towards EB-1A, but it is not everything. USCIS loves to say, you may have qualified for O1, but we're not giving you the EB-1A. They love to say it. So it's a slight advantage, but it's not the defining advantage. Like if you're on H1B and your H1B work is steady and there's no real need to switch you over to O1, I don't recommend doing O1 first. I don't think it gives you that much of an advantage.
So no other questions?
All right.
Yep.
That should be good. Thank you everyone for joining our stream. If you're interested in EB-1A Strong, go ahead and visit eb1astrong.com and fill out the short questionnaire and drop in your LinkedIn profile. We'll take a look. We should be starting our next cohort pretty soon. So if you want to join in for the next 6 weeks, just let us know.
And we'll share a link in the comments as well to the website. Right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.